how I went from animating like this to this. I remember watching the very first big Naruto versus Sasuke fight on TV, and I can't even describe the intensity of emotion I felt. My jaw was on the floor, and I just knew that I want to create that. I want to have that sort of effect on someone watching my work. My family and I moved to Canada, and that's where I went to high school. At around age 17 is when I decided to actually pursue art and animation. Fast forward 4 years later, I ended up getting my bachelor's from a prestigious university in Toronto, majoring in digital painting and expanded animation. And let me tell you, my experience at this prestigious university in Toronto was just no, literally. One story I always tell friends is for this one painting assignment, I remember I had spent maybe 30 hours or so making this detailed digital painting for class. And as we're showcasing our work and it gets to my turn to showcase my work, the student stands up and starts criticizing my work for being too industry standard, which is weird because that's the whole point. You know, you're trying to get into the industry, you're trying to get hired after graduating from school. Anyways, back to the painting. The girl continues pooping on my work, and we get to the point where it's her time to showcase her work. And her work for the class was a painting of a baby's crib. Now, I used the word painting very loosely here because it was just lines in the shape of a baby's crib. It looked like it would have taken 10 minutes tops. And this baby's crib painting was made out of her own feces. Yes, her own feces. That was her painting. And I think she got near 100% on that painting. And I remember I barely passed on that 30-hour painting that I dedicated the time and effort and whatever to create. And that was my average experience at that school. So for context, this school was very contemporary artsy. So I had a lot of teachers and fellow students who were, you know, it was to the point where they turned one of the computer rooms that I would get work done in into a panic room for the students that would have, I don't know. So I was pretty much done with that school after that presentation. I tried to switch out. I tried to go to another college or university to continue my studies because I was 2 years in at this point. But none of my credits matched any other animation school. So I would have had to start from the very beginning. So I decided to just stick it out, get my bachelor's degree from the school, and then figure it out from there. I ended up learning pretty much nothing about animation or how to get a job in that field in the industry after school. I had a certificate to show for it and nothing else, wasting 4 years of my life as well as $40,000 or so. After graduating from this school, I got into a postgraduate student majoring in computer animation at Sheridan College. Now, this is where I actually learned how to animate and anything, just even using a 3D software. This is where it all happened. The program included a lot of getting there at 9 to 10 a.m. and then getting home by 2 to 3 a.m. and just repeat every day. I lost a lot of sleep. I tried to be there as much as possible to get as much work as possible, even some nights sneaking in sleeping bags with other classmates, hiding from security just so we can sleep there and get more work done while we had the time. By the end of that 1 year intensive program, I had learned a bunch of stuff and also finished a short film, which then landed me a job at Guru Studios right after graduation, working full-time on Paw Patrol. So fast forward to me working on Paw Patrol, my first industry job. It was a really good working experience. It was a good working environment. It was tough. The workload was pretty high. It was about, I think, a minute of animation a week, which is insane, but it helped me develop my skills faster and my workflows faster, I think at least. The deadlines are high, but it was a well-oiled machine, that production. They had pose libraries, animation libraries, and I also made some really, really good friends early on in my career, which is great. I'm friends with them still to this day. So overall, it was a really good introduction into the industry for me. I learned a lot and I worked a couple of years there, worked on another production there and with some other studio for some other production until eventually I started working at Tangent Animation on Maya and the 3. And that's where I got introduced to Blender for the very first time. And I was blown away by its potential considering it's a free software and I was coming from Maya having no knowledge of what Blender is capable of. But I realized very quickly how little resources there were for character animation in Blender at the time. everything me and other animators on the show learned was through struggles of trying to get Maya and the 3 done. So it was just trial and error until we figured things out and figured out the best workflow to get this show done in Blender. Fun fact is we actually had to watch the donut tutorial before starting production on Maya and the 3, which it's a fantastic tutorial, but it has nothing to do with character animation or animation in any way. Working there also led to me meeting my now wife, Simona, and my friend Vlad, who are both co-founders of TOAnimate now. Funny enough, Simona and I didn't actually get along at first. I think our lead ended up giving my shot to her, and she was already struggling. So ended up leading to a lot of light banter between us, which then led to conversations and then hanging out and then learning that, you know, she's an amazing person and has had years of experience helping students get into animation schools. So that was really interesting to find out. With Vlad, he was just a Blender wizard. He's been using Blender since his teens. So on Maya and the 3 production, he was the first person everybody went to when they have questions about Blender and animation. He was also my go-to person with any Blender questions throughout the whole production. But lucky for me, he was sitting right behind me. So I had him to myself the whole production, full access to his Blender knowledge. After nearly 2 years of that intense production at Tangent, TOAnimate was born from our love of animation and Blender. Also maybe a little bit of frustration with the institutional learning system that is overpriced and underdelivers with outdated lessons. If you're interested in more behind the scenes stories and free tips and assets and tutorials, then you can join our newsletter down below. That's also where we share discounts when we run promotions for our courses. So join our newsletter and keep an eye out. Looking back at my time in Sheridan, the most important thing I learned, I don't think it was how to animate or how to use Maya, but it was how to keep going when things get tough and when things aren't working out. When you're in debt, when people don't believe in you, when you're tired and things aren't working out, when you start doubting yourself, that's when most people fully give up. And I totally get it. But if you could just push through that, just take small steps forward, animate another shot, animate just one more late night working, things will eventually shift as you keep pushing and working hard. And you start realizing that you have something in you. You prove to yourself that you are capable. Those walls that you had around you that you thought were there, as you work hard and keep pushing through, you realize that those walls were likely there by you. They were set up by you, and you can do way more than you thought you could once you get through those mental walls that you built up. By the end of my postgraduate program, I learned to work really hard and really push myself way past what I thought I was capable of. And after landing my first industry job within weeks of graduating, after all that hard work, it unlocked something in me. It made me realize that my goals and what I achieve is fully dependent on me and my efforts. Depending on how much effort and focus I put into something, the result will match that. There's no shortcuts. Honestly, I never thought I'd be an animator. Growing up in Iran, there wasn't really an option for art as a career. It was either you are a doctor, a businessman, or an engineer. Those are your 3 options. It had to be something stable and something, quote unquote, respectable. And that's why we created the education that we wish we had when we were younger, so that we don't spend so much wasted time and so much wasted money. And to show our love to our students and to make sure they're not going through this journey alone, especially with this huge shift that's happening in the animation industry right now, we started hosting bi-weekly meetings for our students in the community, as well as a monthly animation assignment. You participate in the assignments, and then you get 2 bi-weekly meetings, live session with other students joining in and an instructor critiquing work live, and then later answering questions that the students have. The best part of that is that it's a completely free edition for our animation and Blender Basics students. So our students now get live professional feedback from industry veterans inside the community to hone their skills farther and work on the reel and to prepare them for this ever-shifting industry that we're in that's called animation. Now, if this video spoke to you, then let us know down below what your experience has been like. We will read every single comment. And if you want to get a taste of what being enrolled in our courses could look like, then there's a free video right here, free 1-hour lecture on how to animate your first walk cycle in Blender. So go check it out. There we go. There.